Hey Dominik,
Hey Steffen.
how do you make WordPress posts look great on social media?
Tough question. I'm thinking of something funny, but I can't think of anything. so yeah. So it's actually not that complicated, right? Because usually all of these social networks have certain meta tags that they look for. So whenever you share an URL, there will be a scraping. The social network will fetch this URL that you post and then check for certain meta tags in your content. If you don't have them, it's a bit of a chance. I think it will take maybe the first image that it finds and use the title of the website that it takes. But actually you want to be in control of that. And WordPress out of the box doesn't give you anything to control this. Usually most of the SEO plugins that you might use for WordPress will have some functionality to adjust these tags. And the most prominent ones or the most widely used tags are the so-called OG tags. It's not what you think it stands for, but it stands for open graph, right? So you have the OG : image, right? So you have a meta tag, property equals OG image, and then the content will be the link to your image that you want to show up there. And then there's site name, type, URL, and so on, and description, title. These are the most important ones. I think this was introduced by Facebook, and a lot of the social networks have just copied that and use the same tags, so that you don't have to add that for different networks over and over again. But for Twitter, you sometimes do have additional tags that you can use, right? So for example, to define what card size you want this to be, or to have a custom image, because the image format might be a different one or is a different one in Twitter, that you can just specify different images. Yeah. And to handle all of that, we mostly use WordPress SEO, the plugin by Yoast, but there's also Rank Math or some other plugins that will actually have the same functionality.
Yeah, and there you can set this OG image and the title and the description and sometimes even other data for every post individually. But you can also set that as a global option, so that if you do not have specified any image specifically for social network on an individual post, it will just take the global image that you uploaded. However, this doesn't always have to be a great idea, because you might then end up with always having the same image, just like your logo as a preview on a social network. And you might actually want to have something more custom, but at the same time, when you post something, or maybe you don't post something like your legal notice, but I think it's still great to have a fallback. So what I typically like to do is I like to add a global fallback option, but then at the same time make sure that for every individual page or post that I really care about, that then I upload a specific OG image.
Yeah, and you can also I think usually it will also take the post, the featured image, right? For posts as the main OG image if you don't specify one. At least I think that's what it does. But you can also change this programmatically, right? So I know it's sometimes a bit hard to find the correct functionality because the documentation of those plugins are not always the greatest. But usually there's a way, for example, to say, I have a custom post type called events, and an event doesn't have a featured image, but an event has a location image or an event image, and then you could implement something for every image, either take the event image if there is one, or take the location image if there is one, and if not, then use the fallback image. Yeah, that's pretty handy usually. So about images, as always, those social networks will usually also crop them, right? So you should do some research, what is the correct image format, and then upload it large enough so that at least things don't get scaled up, that you even for retina displays have a large enough image so that it looks good when it's displayed on the social network. Yeah.
And additionally, different social networks do have different image formats that they like to take as a standard. Not even just per network, but also some social networks do have multiple formats for posting the same content, kind of like sometimes they take a square, sometimes like more a wide rectangle, landscape view. This also depends on the size on the image. But yeah, so it makes a lot of sense when you take a picture which has enough room around the main element of the picture, if that's, for example, text, or if that's like an object whatsoever, but like to rather have it larger and to have some room around the edges so that anything can get cropped a little bit, at least like 10 or 20%, like a safe area around that. I would recommend that.
Yeah, I think some social networks also have like additional properties to specify different image formats. But I think this is usually not that well integrated into the SEO plugins. And for that, you would either have to write some custom logic or look for something that will integrate that. But usually it's a lot of work, and it's like usually you will be fine with just picking an image that has a little bit of like buffer on the sides and then can be scaled down. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's also important to take into consideration how long your headlines are, or your descriptions, your meta descriptions, your OG descriptions, your OG title, because like this together will like make the content look good or not, right? And you usually get like in the SEO plugins, you get like hints about how big something should be, how long something should be maximal or minimal. And then it's best like to follow these things, because it can look weird if you have a really long headline and then only a bit of text, or just a one word headline is usually also not so great. So always take that into consideration as well. But images are usually the most important part to make your content look good.
And sometimes there are issues with those images showing not the right images or not updating. And how do you actually debug this then? And this is what we're going to follow up in the next episode.